Welcome back. It's week 3 of Pop Culture Therapy. I am Advent Nebula.
And I am Cruellica Kain.
So, how was your week going so far?
My week, well, outside of entertainment, my week has been busier than anything. Entertainment-wise, pop culture-wise, essentially, it's been pretty good. I finally watched The Nun.
I've heard so many horrible things about that.
Okay, so with The Nun, the trailer had the coolest scene ever. Do you remember the scene where I don't know what they're called.
The catacombs?
Yes, no, not the catacombs. I don't know what a new nun is called. Which is terrible because my family's Roman Catholic, so I should. But nevertheless, when the young nun is walking through the hallway and she sees the ghost-like nun, and then there's a other like evil demon-like nun that runs out of into the scene and shakes her off. Didn't appear in the movie. The coolest scene. I'm like, oh, that is so going to be cool to see how it plays up into the movie. I knew it was going to be a terrible movie, but I was like, maybe these scenes are what I'll see in the movie, and I could be like, yes. And no.
Thank God Wreck-It Ralph made a joke about that.
Oh, I know. No, the joke for Wreck-It Ralph with the nun was perfect. The movie, Wreck-It Ralph Breaks the Internet was great, but the movie about the nun was terrible. And that's the sucky part, because the nun, when the nun came into fruition in the first Conjuring, and then the second Conjuring, and then Annabelle 2, you're like, okay, I can get behind this because the character is quite interesting. But alas, no. Outside of that, I still have to catch up on Promised Neverland. Not because I'm not wanting to watch it. It's just, I figure with the show that deep, I need to have a couple episodes to watch it one time.
Yeah, especially in the content in Promised Neverland, when it starts getting really dark, as it's going to get as you go on, you're going to want to be, okay, I'm glad I binged through this.
And that's where I'm coming. That's where I'm thinking. There's certain shows like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I prefer to binge rather than watching week to week because, one, for a lot of those episodes are two-parters, so it just makes life easier. But outside of that, I watched the next 2 episodes. My cat is a roommate, which I still love. And I need to convince Kaijin Okami to allow me to have a cat, because he's scared of a cat around his collection. So everyone, if you do actually listen to this time, well, I know everybody's listening to it every time, but please put in the comments that Cruellica Kain needs a cat. Please.
I think the only reason he doesn't want a cat because he doesn't want something with an ego bigger than his.
That's so true. So outside of, I've watched the other shows that have been for the new season, but how has your week been so far?
So far, ended up watching the first 3 episodes of Gundam Unicorn again, just getting ready with NT out February 19th. And if you don't know, it is showing in theaters only that night. So check your local theater listings, see if they're showing it, and get your tickets right away.
Oh, yeah, because for a limited run showing, they're definitely going to be filling up quick.
Yeah, that's just something you want to be on the top of if you're not already.
And you want to look at Fathom Events?
Fathom Events is who's selling the tickets through. Go through that, or Fandango, where I've been able to buy my tickets for a lot of these Fathom Events through. Also, started playing a new game that I bought last July.
What game?
Shining Force Resonance. I like the old Shining series. Back in the day when they were on the Sega Genesis and the old PlayStation 1 versions, there hasn't been a Shining game in the Sega series that came over since PlayStation 2 era. Mm-hmm. And where this one, I have an affinity and a love of anything that's got music related to the story, where this does. And then also it's an RPG with a dating aspect where you can both date the guys and the girls, and you're the male main character.
Ooh, now I have to look at that one, because I can have all of my loves in one.
I already saw one, a pyromaniac with a guitar that has wild hair and is a badass that you'd probably be enjoying.
Oh, yeah. No. Because every time I play Persona 3 for the Vita, or no, PS
Yeah, it's the Vita. It's the PlayStation Portable.
PSP, yeah.
I have that game on my Vita, so it is available on the Vita as well.
Oh, it is? Okay.
Digital only.
Son of a bitch. Nevertheless, I always play as the one character that dies.
Shinjiro.
Yeah.
Game's 15 years old at this point. I don't think it's that.
Yeah, that's true. There's not really a spoiler if you haven't played the game yet in the last decade and a half. But if you play as the girl and you max out your social link with him, he survives. He's
in a coma.
I was like, if you see the fucking cutscene, excuse me, I'm not going to swear too much, but he's dead.
Yeah,
he's my favorite character, and the first time I played the game, I was so mad when he died because I had put so much work into him. Because I liked him more than Akihiro, so I'm like, yeah, Akihiro.
Akihiko.
Hiko, yes. I put so much into him, and then he's gone, and I'm like, I spent bank on that man, and what? He deserts me.
And yet, I've heard people do the same thing in Persona 5 with Akechi.
Yeah. I did it with, yeah. Yes. I don't know why it is. I always pick the characters that are going to leave me hanging as the ones I'm putting all of my effort into. And it burns me every single time with Persona because then all my other characters are like, okay, and I can still win, but it's not, you have that star character.
Yeah, it's one of those where it's like, oh, oof. Outside of that, that's been really the only two things I've really done this week. Still working on the Berseria review, and I keep having to re-edit because I go on Zestiria rant, which I don't want in the review. I mean, and Zestiria, it's just one of those Tales games where I couldn't complete it, went and watched the anime, and enjoyed the anime version, which people complain about the bromance taken away that's in the series that was in the game. I'm like, okay, I can see where you people are coming from that, but from a structural, narrative, straightforward standpoint with the villain's motives, the anime did it better. I'm sorry.
No, you actually, I had an argument about somebody, speaking of bromance, it's completely off topic of your particular series, but it's just, I was looking at my Blu-ray case of it. Somebody actually tried to get into an argument with me while I was at work because I have this ironic pool of anime fans working in space. And they are not the same type of anime fans. That was trying to convince me that Victor and Yuri from Yuri on Ice were a bromance, not an actual romance. And I'm like...
did you watch the show?
I know! I'm like, did you watch it? Episode 7, episode 10...
You're thinking that's a bromance. I got some bad news for you.
It made me think of Jersey Shore. So I've never watched an episode of Jersey Shore, mainly because I like myself. Barely, but I still like myself. And when I ever see Mike, the situation on anything, and he talks about bromance, I'm like, oh my god, I'm from that side of the country. Thank God I'm not from that state.
I think Always Sunny in Philadelphia did the best rendition of Jersey Shore for an episode.
Oh my god. No, I think the best insults I've ever seen for Jersey Shore come from 30 Rock. Tina Fey knows how to cut it deep. So I really don't have anything more to talk about, so I guess our show's over, right?
Wrong. Very wrong. As you can see, this week's episode is called The Television Soapbox. We ended up looking at this and went, what series have we watched that have either gone on for too long, got canceled too early, or we felt it just had that perfect ending, and I'm so glad that's where they decided to end the show at.
Oh, yeah. I will admit, for the series that ran too long, which is probably going to be the longest part of our soapbox, because as any pop culture fan is like, the moment you had this one series that just pisses you off, you can't help but to be on the soapbox detailing what it's wrong with it, why it should just go away, and you just cut it to shreds. For example, one of the shows that I've been watching since the 80s. Yes, the 80s, and please never ask how old I am. It started on the Tracy Ullman show. If you're really not familiar with that, depending on your age, which is certainly fine, it was kind of, think of SNL or
In Living Color is probably the best example of the Tracy Ullman show.
Yeah, in Living Color, or even Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
Dave Chappelle, that single actor who kind of controlled it. It was a sketch show. Tracy Ullman, she's British, so the comedy efforts, the reason I mention it like that, are a little dry depending on an American taste. But they actually had this one animated segment, The Simpsons, that would air, and people liked it so much that in 1989, it aired the first episode, which was a Christmas episode because of when it aired, and it's been going on ever since. It's currently at season 30.
And it's been renewed through season 32.
Yes, and this is the one thing I'm hoping, now that Disney owns Fox, that they'll cancel it.
Yep. With the animated series, the reason it's renewed for 32 is because they have to have the storyboards and everything up and going through a certain point so they can get the lines recorded. So hopefully 32 will be the last season, because they've actually shown Disney will make more money off of syndication runs for The Simpsons than if they keep it going.
Well, and the hard part is, for the character Marge Simpson, her voice actress has a very gravelly sounding voice. She has since pretty much the show started. I think that's what's always helped, is she kind of has that less annoying than Fran Drescher graveliness, but it mainly because it doesn't have that Jersey accent. But it's just, with age, it's become very deeper, very choppy, almost kind of grating.
And then Dan Castellaneta, you can hear his voice getting higher pitched over the years.
Yeah, you can hear his pitch getting higher. And it's just...
The only one that's really stayed the same in how they sound is Nancy Cartwright.
Oh, is Bart?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it helps because it's perpetual puberty, so you can't screw that up too much. But Simpsons, I know Kaiji Okami has gone over this particular soapbox on some of his reviews, like his top 10 list, a lot, and I personally want him to do a little bit more with it, just because he's much more affected by how downhill the series has been going than myself, because of how dedicated he's always been.
And I'll just watch a random Simpsons episode here and there. I really have not paid much attention to the show since about season 20.
Yeah. And the last really good season was season 11, maybe?
Yeah. There's been a few good gems sprinkled in here and there, but you can tell the writers literally are running out of ideas and starting to recycle ones in with a new plot.
They are, and it's it's probably the best example, and we're going to have a lot of others, but it's probably the best example of when a show goes on for too long and it's trying to capture each new cultural shift, and it just doesn't work because the characters were made for the 80s and 90s. The 90s perfected The Simpsons, and I would say that's where their culture should stay.
Yeah, it really, after about 2001, it really has not aged well.
Oh, no. So,
speaking of another show that just went on for a little too long, 2.5 Men.
Oh my God. Okay. I actually like Charlie Sheen. Yeah. He's a psycho. He really isn't human. And I'm not buying into his whole tiger's blood. I just don't think he's human. Yeah. But he's a good actor.
Yeah. And the way the show was, it's like you can see Charlie Sheen being Charlie in the show in the same aspect.
Oh, yes.
But as the show started waning on, and it seemed like the season before he had his nervous breakdown, is just where the series started falling apart. Of course, I can't think of the name of the son on the show, but when he was getting ready to leave is where you started seeing the show really go downhill.
And I really thought, being that I was a I'm not a hardcore fan of the show, but enough of a fan. How they wrote off Charlie Sheen. I understand what Chuck Lorre was trying to do. He was trying to make this FU to Charlie Sheen. But how they wrote him off and then brought in Ashton Kutcher. And I can personally say to the world, I hate Ashton Kutcher. I've never found him to be a good actor. I never even liked Punk'd. And I watched Punk'd a couple of times, and I just thought he was a douche.
Yeah.
And even when he was on Shark Tank as one of the sharks, he did not have that. I never thought he had the authenticity that the other sharks had as being a person who really understood making a brand.
That 70s show was probably the only time I really enjoyed him as a character.
And even then, I was fine with it because of who the character he was playing, but only for so long. There's only so long you can watch somebody play a dumbass and then see him act like a dumbass outside of it and wonder, is it him acting or is he just being himself?
Yeah. And it's hard to really tell anymore with Ashton Kutcher and his acting, even when he's done the occasional movie here and there. You're just like, is Ashton Kutcher just being Ashton Kutcher, or is he just that same acting type no matter what he does?
Well, and there's some real, like, I've come to that conclusion, not to go far off topic, because I'll get back. Johnny Depp.
He has the same situation.
It was the same situation for so many years. I was like, oh, he's just very eclectic, very creative. He just has that way about him. And then you see him outside of movies, or you just see him playing almost the same character over and over and over again, just with a different name or a different costume. Yeah. You're like, okay.
Yeah, that's basically how it is.
Another show, ironically, that's also created by Chuck Lorre. Because I do have to admit, as frustrating as the man is, he has incredible ideas for content that can work.
Yeah, and it does work, but it just gets to a point where Chuck Lorre just has it drag on for far too long.
Well, he needs to understand how to cut it off. And that's actually the Big Bang Theory. And I know people may comment and say, well, the Big Bang Theory is ending. But truthfully, having watched it intermittently and knowing how the story goes and things like that, and knowing how much additional pop culture items are along with it, like the board games, all the coffee mugs and things like that, it just blew up. And Sheldon Cooper, personally, because he's the star of the show, I know there's many others and things like that, after a while, it got boring to me.
Yeah, the characters, just the archetypes. I'm like, yeah, Chuck Lorre, it seems like you're pulling from just certain little aspects of what the culture that we are in is, but you're taking it and making it accessible to the mainstream, but at what cost? It actually does piss off a lot of fans of the community, and then other people defend it.
Well, and that's my problem. And I do have friends who love it, who will defend it, who are part of the nerd culture. But at the same time, I work in an organization that employs individuals like all of the characters are supposed to be on the show. I've hired people that are supposed to be like Sheldon or Leonard, or what's the guy who actually went into space?
I can't remember.
Nevertheless, I've employed people like that, and they're not cool. They're not mainstream while still being nerdy. There's just something and they don't get girls that easily.
No.
And I understand they worked for it and shit like that. I'm well aware. But it's not by any means realistic. And I'm not saying that there aren't nerds that are like that, but it's just they're trying too hard to make it attractive to the world.
Now let's get to my series that I love to death, but the last season, oh god, the final season, and that's Dexter. I mean, yes, it's based on a book series, and only the first season follows the books.
Really?
Yeah, really.
With how much they've done, only the first season followed the books.
Yes.
Maybe that's why I like the first season the best.
Yeah. Dokes gets killed off at the end of the second season, where he does not get killed off till the sixth book.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry for anybody who has actually watched the show, or has not watched the show, but yeah, spoiler. But, yeah, this is a show that it seems like at season 4 was a highlight. They could have ended it there, because for me, seasons 5 and 6 seems like they were pulling for something. But then, where I found out the series could have ended just perfectly was with the ending of season 7. They had the right setup. Dexter got a new girlfriend. She turns out to be a serial killer like him. LaGuardia, she finds out Dexter was the Bay Harbor Butcher. That was the one reason they were hunting the serial killer in season 2 was Dexter's cheating girlfriend at that time in the season. And then they tied it all together. And when she died at the end, I was like, okay, you had the perfect point to just go and end the series with Dexter with a new serial killer girlfriend off there. No, you had to do season 8 with the police psychologist trying to get into Dexter's mind. And then Dexter's sister dies after finding out that she's had a crush on him.
Okay, let me just stop him real quick. I know you can't see this and you probably hear it, but I just have to say, we're literally taking the soapbox literally.
Yeah.
It just continue.
Yeah. And then with the end of season 8, the hurricane in the boat, and then when Dexter is a scruffed up lumberjack in the middle of the California redwoods, it's just like that. No, I'm season 8. No, you do not exist. No, Showtime. What the hell were you thinking?
I'm committed to many shows, and I will have a soapbox in a moment for shows that are still airing that I don't think really need to air. But, damn. So, my particular soapbox for shows that ran too long, they're actually running. So, I'm just going to put that out there. These shows are still airing, and I'm not going to give too many spoilers, mainly because I don't give a shit about them really anymore. I watch them, but it doesn't mean like I care about them. So I'm just going to dub this practically every show, comic book show, by the WB. And that includes Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Yes and No, even though it's doing a pretty good job, and Supernatural. And I know people say Supernatural is not technically a superhero show, but when you steal from Constantine for your entire storyline and plot, you can go to hell. You're a comic book show. Anyways, they have comics and they have an anime now. So there you go. Supernatural, starting with that because that's the oldest, that was supposed to be 5 seasons long.
And it's going on to season 15, and I'm looking at like, how did you last this long? Admittedly, the Scooby-Doo episode was funny.
Okay, and also having, the guy from Psych playing the devil.
Oh yeah, playing Constantine.
Not Constantine, the devil.
Oh yeah.
So I will admit, when I first started watching Supernatural, I fell in love with it. It did take a little bit, but it was very creative. Watching something that really did, once again, remind me of Constantine, reminded me of Tales from the Crypt in a kind of a way like that. Or Erie, Indiana. I don't know if you've ever seen that show.
I've heard of that show. I've never gotten a chance to actually watch it.
It's a kid's version of Tales from the Crypt, but it had, or Goosebumps, or After Dark, not After Dark.
Alone in the Dark.
Alone in the Dark.
Which I enjoyed that show.
There's so many shows that do that with different monsters, and it was kind of like an adult version, but toned down compared to Tales from the Crypt, so it could get to a wider audience. So the first 5 seasons, and I'm gonna not try to spoil it too much, but at the same time, just to give you a gist, the first 5 seasons were dealing with 2 brothers fractured in their relationship because of parents passing away, their father being taken to hell, and so much going on.
And Jeffrey Dean Morgan just did an awesome job as their dad.
He did, and the first 5 seasons was kind of them coming together, looking for their dad, solving these mysteries. Like you said, Scooby-Doo, which they did really do a Scooby-Doo episode. And it was supposed to culminate, and the creator actually planned it to be 5 seasons. And he actually completed the story at season 5. However, the WB then saw, wait, this show's doing really good. This is our cash cow. We cannot have you go away.
So they ended up bringing on the 2 associate writers from the show to take over and run the show, and they ran it till season 13 until a new series writer has now taken it over.
And just like we commented on The Simpsons, there's a lot of fun things going on. You have characters who play off type.
Yep.
They're doing creative things. It's a brilliant show when it wants to be brilliant, but the story is not going anywhere anymore. They already accomplished their goal.
And then they brought in Crowley as a villain, and they accomplished the goal on that.
Exactly. You accomplish all of your damn goals, but you're not going away. And they keep on moving it night to night, trying to pair it up with another show that has worse ratings so they can make both of them.
I thought it was going to get canceled when they paired it with Vampire Diaries. You got Vampire Diaries ended up getting canceled instead.
I know! I'm like, no! And I don't like... It's not like I was disappointed when Vampire Diaries got canceled by any means, but still, take it away! So along with that, you have Flash. The reason I'm going to go with Flash before Arrow is because Flash has a huge rose gallery, and I'm not the one who actually reads all the damn comics. That's Kaiju no Kami. But still, you have so many different types of villains. You have metahumans, you have magical villains, you have so much. And then in the last 3 seasons, and we're season 5. We're in 5 seasons. Last 3 seasons, I'm like, oh my god. I'm out. And I can't be out because I have somebody who wants to keep on watching this train wreck because he's insane.
And this season with Cicada has been a train wreck.
Oh my god, I'm not even going to go into that. And then we have Arrow. When you bring in Ra's al Ghul, and I'm just going to say Ra's al Ghul because apparently DC in the modern fucking era does not know how to pronounce Ra's al Ghul, nor do they know how to actually do anything correctly. And I understand people are like, Liam Neeson was a pretty good Ra's al Ghul.
That's the only example we've had of a good race.
But also, there was one particular freaking thing missing from him as Ra's al Ghul. He is not Middle Eastern. Ra's al Ghul is a 600-year-old Middle Eastern. Yes, he's going to have the European roots and different things like that, but they just...
Yeah. And yeah, he's Middle Eastern as well, but you could also have him be like a Romanian descent, being a la Vlad, but they even could have done it that way and still managed to screw it up.
And they screwed up everything about him, the League of the Assassins, and they had John Barrowman. And if you've watched Doctor Who, John Barrowman is a kick-ass actor. And they even had him with this whole League of Assassins. He couldn't even save it. And then, finally, I'm going to skip Legends of Tomorrow because they actually got a clue.
This season's been just bang out of the park.
They figured it out. I do think it doesn't need to last more than this season because I want it to end on a high note. But Supergirl. We finally got a modern day female superhero show. Because we had Wonder Woman back in the day, and for what it was worth, kind of like the Incredible Hulk, it was okay. It was good. It worked for the era it was in. Supergirl in the modern day, you're thinking, yes, we can get it. No! The first season was incredible, and then when it was canceled from CBS due to lack of ratings, which makes sense because that was the wrong network, because they did the same thing with Constantine.
NBC was the one.
Oh, yeah.
NBC. Well, the problem with Constantine's cancellation was it aired with Grimm, so...
Well, yeah, and Grimm failed. But then you had it come back, and the second season was okay. You're like, okay, it's trying to find its groove because it has to move to a whole new studio, because where it was originally being produced in LA, it's now going to Canada, so budgets have to be cut or changed because of environments.
And writers' change was very obvious.
And then they change characters, and I am not going to go into how I feel about how they change characters because I don't want people to think I'm insensitive or anything like that. But how they wrote some of the characters, one, it seemed like they were pandering. Two, it seemed like they weren't working with the characters, the actors or actresses themselves to make them feel comfortable with the changes. So half the original cast is gone. You only have Supergirl and her sister. Everybody else is like disappearing. I know there's the guy who plays Oh, jeez. Jimmy Olsen. And he's James because we are in the millennial era. God help me. So, I'm going to end my soapbox by saying the CW shows need to just bow out. They did a great thing because if it wasn't for these CW shows, or WB shows, CW, WB, they're Warner Brothers. If it wasn't for these shows, we wouldn't have had other comic book shows. We wouldn't have had Cloak and Dagger. We wouldn't have had...
Gotham or Lucifer.
Well, exactly. And nobody would have ever taken a chance on Lucifer if not for showing and proving that comic book shows don't work. So I appreciate what they did. I'm so happy that they existed, but they need to go away. Mainly because also I need to free up my weekdays so I can watch more movies.
Now let's look at some series that we have felt that got canceled a little too early. I'm going to start with one that really got almost its complete run in the 90s. Aired as a cartoon for kids. I watched it growing up, and that was Pirates of Darkwater. Really fun, entertaining, energetic, well thought out, developed characters that were almost all anti-heroes. Then it gets the axe when there's only 4 episodes left.
Seriously?
Yeah. And it's not like at this time in the 90s you could actually go in and finish with the animation stuff at the time. When you got that axe, you were done.
Well, you had to make movies at least 6 to 9 months, depending on how much you were doing in advance, because you had to create the storyboards, ship it out, and more often than not, they were shipping out to South Korea to actually, or Japan to do the animation. And then it had to be shipped back. You had to cut it all together. You had to do the voice acting. And unlike the Japanese or even unlike pretty much anything except for European and American anime, those anime lip flaps are more simplistic. Yep. For at least even more specifically with American, the lip flaps are supposed to actually match how
that's
people
why,
speak.
and with a lot of the times, this is another reason why when they got the axe, you knew it wasn't going to come back because you could tell that the characters' mouth movements were drawn based on the dialogue recorded, that they required the dialogue for this show well in advance before they got the animation done.
Oh, yeah.
So the animation was done to the actual actors' voices and how they were portraying everything. And this is at a time when actors would get in the studio together in a booth and all record together for American shows, which some still do that, some do not nowadays. It all depends on the budget they have. But this was a very high budget show as well, and for it to get the axe with only 4 episodes left and ending on a cliffhanger, that's just extremely disappointing.
Speaking of a show that ended on a cliffhanger, animated wise, that was flippin' awesome in the, I would say, early 2000s, because I think it got canceled probably about 2005, 2006, because I know we were hanging out when it got canceled.
Yeah.
Megas XLR. So
yeah, 2 seasons is all it lasted, if I remember right.
And it ended on a cliffhanger, and it's never ever been released on DVD. You can find really, really terrible prints online from television reps. But even that, it's so hard. And Megas XLR, simplistically, it was about these 2, I would say, stoners.
Yeah, they definitely were high school age stoners.
They were high school age stoners. They were literally the grunge era, like late grunge, early
hipster era teens.
Yeah, early hipster era teens from that 2000s era. And they got this giant mech from outer space. I can't exactly remember how they got it because it was very confusing even when watching it, but the show was brilliant. It made references to anime. It made references to comics. It made references to everything, practically everything pop culture. It even threw some shade at Sailor Moon by their character when she was transforming, just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning and so on.
And it's another one of those shows where you got actors like Wendy Lee and Steve Bloom in the show. You could actually tell because of all the anime references, they were enjoying the hell out of the roles they had in the show.
And then you had Bruce Campbell doing the MODOK type character, and it kind of got canceled right around the time that they started with his storyline. They were going to do this whole big event, and they were going to bring in like other Marvel-esque characters. It seemed like, and add more.
It was going to be, and it looks like it was going to be the last season too. And then Cartoon Network was like, nope, canceled.
And it was disappointing because it was. You could see it not being a forever type show. It wasn't going to be like Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy or Powerpuff Girls. It was never going to be that. It was just something that you knew it was going to be a few seasons and you were going to enjoy it for the ride that it was.
Now, just going back to one of those shows that you enjoyed, I enjoyed, our friend Chris Lidge is just obsessed with.
And he cried when he found out this was taken away.
Yeah, he worships Bruce Campbell. Ash vs. Evil Dead just is so disappointing that each season progressively got better, and then for that just be axed by stars like that.
Well, and it was disappointing because it wasn't. They claimed it was due to lack of audience.
Yeah, which I can understand in an aspect, but it's Sam Raimi. He's got a niche audience he goes for, and it was only planned to be 4 seasons anyway.
Well, exactly. It wasn't supposed to be a very long show. It was just supposed to be kind of like this joking revival of the, movie.
Of the Evil Dead stuff?
Yes.
And then Army of Darkness. And then Army of Darkness was where it was going to go with the 4th season, from what we've heard from Raimi, and Campbell himself was going to revert back to that.
Well, exactly. It was just supposed to be a tongue-in-cheek revival to make everyone happy to see a little bit more of the Ash character, especially because Season 2 I loved. And you got to see a little bit more of his backstory.
And Pablo was just hilarious in that season.
And so is Kelly, which I have an affinity towards a character
She
named
curses
Kelly.
as much as you do as well.
Oh, I know, and I have to control myself on recording. But the show was just... Whereas you have so many shows that try to do, like, recapture the good old days, but they do it in more of a modern setting, which I can respect. You have to do that. Fuller House did it for their show. I remember when they revived Twilight Zone for a while, they did that there. And it doesn't always work. It doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't work for the audiences. The one thing that Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, and everyone else who worked on the show knows is you have a niche audience. You have people who loved it for a very specific reason and didn't have high expectations of something that wouldn't exist. It played to exactly the same tune as the first 2 Evil Dead movies, which there are only 2. And then the
Army of Darkness, it just kept the comedy going for
exactly.
that.
It didn't try to go serious like the remake Evil Dead did. Not that the remake was terrible, but it was made for a modern generation. And this one was like, you know what? Even though it's going to be set modern day, we're going to pretend it's still the 80s because that's how everybody's going to kind of intermingle with each other.
And the way it is, too, is the way Bruce Campbell plays Ash. It's like he's still stuck in the 80s, early 90s, where Pablo and Kelly are the modern day characters.
And they are. And they have to try to assess how they're reacting to a character who's stuck in this one time. And it works so well. And it was so sad to see it go away. Because the 3rd season, they tried to give it an ending. They tried, but obviously...
You could tell they still were stuck in the planning stages for the 4th season, and it still ends up with that openness, just in case they were able to get that final season.
And speaking of a show that literally ended on a cliffhanger, like the last flippin' episode was an actual cliffhanger, Agent Carter.
Oh, God.
That show, so... If you have not, and if you haven't, I'm a little concerned of where you've been for the last 10 years.
11 now.
Oh, 11. But if you have not watched, or if you have watched the original Captain America, Agent Carter, she played a prominent character. And at the end of Captain America, which that's how they literally start the series, she comes to New York because the man that she loved is presumed dead. Nobody knows what exactly happened. And it shows her being an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., helping to develop S.H.I.E.L.D., but being a woman in the 1940s. So it's not like this rah-rah go feminist, but it's this rah-rah showing someone who has all the skills, all the abilities, and is trying to push forward and show people that there's a different way of doing things, that you can't be stuck in the past.
Yeah, that one ended on a horrible, horrible cliffhanger.
And it was terrible. It was going so well. And when it ended, and then you find out it's never coming back, you're like, okay.
Why did I invest 2 seasons in on
Well,
this?
yeah, it made me so happy that I never bought the Blu-rays.
Yeah.
Because my thought process was, I was planning on getting the first Blu-ray for the first season, and it just so happened after we finished season 2, and they said it was gone. It's like, okay, I'm happy I didn't spend my money, but still, it was a show that I would have rewatched multiple times.
Yeah, speaking of another show that happened to Showtime, another series where Showtime just didn't know what they were doing with, but granted, the creator of this show also went and created Pushing Daisies and Hannibal, so I think he's got a track record of shows
Oh,
getting canceled.
God, yes.
Dead Like Me, which I found that show just hilarious. The concept of people stuck in limbo on Earth having to work their way into heaven or hell.
Oh my God, I watched the first season of that. I watched the first season of Pushing Up Daisies. Never got a chance to watch Hannibal, which I knew it was incredible. Both times I'm like, okay, and I'm watching it well after the show's done, and then then finding out, oh yeah, it's been canceled. Okay, this is so good.
And Dead Like Me sold me on the opening episode when the main character, she gets killed when a piece of the Russian space station literally falls on her.
It was the most ridiculous way to die. Like the one in a billion chance they'll ever happen.
And then the other core characters, all of them, there's one who's been stuck in limbo on Earth having to help characters for about 50 years that ends up becoming her mentor, and the way he just ridiculously died by a horse falling on him in the middle of New York street was just like, okay.
And they're the most saltiest characters in existence. I don't think any of these characters in this show are actually like nice. Yeah. They have their nice moments, but they're so salty. It's like, oh my God.
And you just look at some of these, like, there's a reason why you haven't gone to the afterlife.
Thank you.
Yeah, you are an asshole.
But it's hilarious. So if we go into the anime territory, very rarely do you have animes get canceled. And if you do, you can clearly see why.
And it's happened twice in the Gundam franchise.
Yes. And for F91, the first one for Gundam, that
was just made as a movie for a canceled series, but Tomino decided to try it again.
And he tried it on an anniversary. So if you don't know Tomino, he is the creator of Gundam. He was one of the creators, but he's the most visual of the creators.
And he's had most of the writing done for a lot of these shows. And there's a reason why there's the nickname Kill 'Em All Tomino if you've seen a lot of his shows.
Exactly. So he was heavily involved in the first... Well, he was heavily involved in quite a few of them, but for Universal Century, primarily the first 3, he had the largest involvement.
And then he didn't have a large involvement again on Universal Century shows until Turn A.
Exactly. Which Turn A almost was canceled, I believe.
It almost was. It's probably because it was the one after Gundam X, which was a canceled Gundam.
Gundam X deserved to be canceled.
Yeah.
I am never going to argue with that. So, after years and years of letting someone else hold the reins for Gundam, which, good, bad, or otherwise, we got some flops. Like, now that I've rewatched it multiple times, which hurts my heart, Gundam Wing. Not that Gundam Wing was terrible. They had a lot of great ideas, a lot of great characters, the execution when you rewatch it, and the dub.
Especially with Gundam Wing being a rehash of the original, Zeta, and Double Zeta, all into a 52-episode series.
Exactly. And then we had a couple of stellar series. Like, personally, I love G Gundam. Yeah. And I love the FU that the actual main creator and design did, because Sunrise, if you know, for pretty much all of Gundam, has always been involved, and their goal was to profit off it, kind of like Sentai or Tokusatsu, where you make Gundam figures because people love building and having their own Gundams. That's why we have build fighters. However, Sunrise was so up the G Gundam creator's ass, he was like, you know what, fine, try to make these Gundams. We had a Gundam that was like literally on a spinner. We had a Gundam that
was a giant windmill. And then let's not even get started with the America Gundam, which was a boxing Gundam with a football helmet.
Well, yeah, because it's America. But, so you had G Gundam. You also had Gundam 00.
Which was the series that aired right before the one she's getting to.
And so the series, long story short, or short story long, I guess is a better way of putting it, is Reconquista. And a lot of people will probably say, well, Reconquista wasn't that good. And there's a reasoning behind that. When Tomino first started working on the show, he was planning it, kind of like his previous Gundam endeavors, to be a 50-episode series. So the first part of it, as Tomino does, he starts it slow, doing character building, doing world building. Sometimes he starts really slow. You have to be patient with Tomino. Yeah. He's very special. That's why we have Amuro.
Yeah. This is a very slow build-up show, just like he did with his previous Gundam series that worked on Turn A.
Oh, yeah.
So you had about 17 episodes of a build-up into the show, and then right around episode 15, Tomino gets the word from Sunrise they aren't going to do a 52-episode series, or he wants to cut it down to 26.
So the last about 11 episodes have to go into this bum rush of encapsulating an entire 52-episode Gundam series into 26 episodes. And it falls flat. And it's so disappointing because you get so much content that you're like, oh, is this going to be part of Universal Century? Is this going to relate to all the other previous Gundams? Because that's the really cool thing about Tomino, and that's a really cool thing about Gundam in general, is you can always find these little snippets that work for the entire universe at large.
Yeah.
And it hurt my heart because after watching 00 and getting into the next, because it's not like Gundam is all the time. It happens every few years. Yeah, you might have sprinklings of like build fighters or OVAs, but it's not a year-to-year show.
Yeah, and it's just sucks that this one was what had to happen, and then we got stuck with Gundam Age right afterwards.
Oh, God. And Gundam Age, if you have never seen it, great thought process. Don't waste your time.
Yeah, really don't waste your time. Now we're getting into the best part. Series that, for us, just ended perfectly.
So I am going to start this off with the one show that I personally didn't think I was going to like. Mainly because it seemed far-fetched, and it actually seemed a little weird how they're going to present it. And that's Breaking Bad. So Breaking Bad, for anyone who has not seen it, one, I'm not going to spoil it because it's hard to, I'm not going to say too much because it's hard to explain without spoiling it. But it has an incredible cast of characters. Bryan Cranston, who actually who was originally played the dad in Malcolm in the Middle, who was always a comedic actor. So I want to preface this first because when I heard that he was going to be in the show, I'm like, if this is going to be a drama, it's just not going to work.
It's the same thing with Aaron Paul.
Well, exactly. Aaron Paul, they played against type. And yes, they used some of the elements of their previous endeavors to make this work. It was amazing. So, long story short for this one, Bryan Cranston's character, Walter White, is a high school science teacher. Also, because teachers really don't make a lot of money, he's working on the side as an attendant at a car wash. He just celebrates his 50th birthday, and then he has this unending cough, and not long after, he goes to the doctors, finds out he has about stage 3, stage 4 lung cancer. And at the time where this show is taking place, around 2008, lung cancer can, just like many cancers, it can still be fought, but there weren't the advances that are made now. So Walter White is very scared for his family because it's very expensive to fight a disease of any sort, and 2, he doesn't want to leave his family with nothing if and when he goes.
And then he goes out and ends up getting in contact with Aaron Paul's character, Jesse Pinkman, who was a former student of his, and they decided to get an RV and start cooking meth.
And so taking that premise and then having 6 seasons, technically it's technically 5, but because of the writer's strike, they actually did the good thing, unlike Heroes, took a break, so they didn't take a chance of ruining the show.
Yeah, they wanted to keep this show as tight and well written as they possibly could.
They did. They kept the show very tight, and every episode, because it was a continuous story, worked really well together. They had characters that were so sympathetic. You're like, oh my god. You had other characters that started out sympathetic that you felt for, found out they're terrible human beings. And while it did have a couple of flaws, it wasn't by any means to the point where you wanted to stop watching the show, and it actually ended in the most beautiful manner that you're like, okay, this is great. And they actually, they're currently doing a prequel series for one of the main characters in the show that appears in season 2, Saul Goodman.
And then there's plans for Jesse's character to get a movie that's going to take place a few years after the events.
And the nice thing about this is all the people that worked on Breaking Bad are the ones that are working on Better Call Saul and everything else. Yeah. So they have this consistency, and they even said when they started working on Better Call Saul is they would not do it, or they would not keep it going unless they felt like it could actually work. They did not want to ruin the creation of what helped them really realize their dreams.
Yeah, with the continuation with that movie for Jesse is they want to wait until Better Call Saul is done and then go in with the movie with Jesse, and we'll see where his character went after the end of the show. And it's less like they're not letting anything go. They're like, what happened to Walter in the end is up to you on what you think happened.
Oh, yes. That's exactly how to put it.
And for me, 90s sitcoms were like a hit or miss. And NBC especially. And some of those shows on NBC are just stuck in a time capsule. But Larry David with Seinfeld just had the perfect premise of a show that literally about nothing, but with just a core group of friends, which, yeah, some of them are the most horrible people on the planet at times.
Oh, God!
Especially George.
Oh, George Costanza. When he inadvertently kills his fiancée?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. By poisoning her by licking envelopes.
Yeah. But and then Kramer with the salad in the shower episode.
Oh, God.
But there are just so many episodes that just stick out with you. And then Larry David, and nowadays he does Curb Your Enthusiasm on HBO, but that takes breaks for maybe a few years before he'll do another season of episodes. He just knows when to call it quits, or like when there needs fresh ideas. And when Seinfeld ended season 8, it's like, and then brought back all the plot lines from the previous episodes.
Oh, they did.
It's just like, yes, you knew exactly how you were going to end the show, and it just was a funny and just felt up Seinfeld's alley on how to end the show.
And I am not a huge fan of Jerry Seinfeld. I like some of his humor, because some of his stand-up is very dry and very, very weird. But the way he had, you had him, you have Jason Alexander, you had Julia Louis-Dreyfus. You had Michael, what was the Kramer's?
I cannot think of his last name right
but
now.
But at least those 3 core characters, because they were admittedly in every episode, those 3 core characters together had so much chemistry, had so much fun, and you actually, even if you did not like them when they talked about the soup Nazi or they had the Puerto Rican Day Festival, when they did some terrible things, they still worked to make it funny. And they actually made it, for someone who is from New York, actually somewhat culturally representative. Because I'm like, oh, I get that because I'm from there.
And then you had memorable side characters like Putty and Newman.
Oh, God. It was... anytime. And the way they always treat their apartment. So this is something that's real life for me, and I think I almost take it from Seinfeld. So,
Jerry let his apartment be open to anybody.
Pretty much any one of my friends, including Advent Nebula, who takes this to the new extreme, because Silverquill still has manners, but pretty much it's like, just walk in. I don't have a problem with it. I know you, I trust you, just walk in, do whatever you want. Advent Nebula will come sit on my couch for no reason other than just to still play Fire Emblem, ignore me for an hour, and be like, hey!
That's not the only gacha game I play. I play others.
I know, but that's the main one that you play. Or Fate! Oh my god, his obsession with Fate is going to be an entire episode, because I know I love Ultimate games, but okay, so stop going off topic. Seinfeld, I treat everybody pretty much like how Jerry treats his friends. Just come in, grab what you want, do what you want. It's your home like it's my home. So the next series, I'm going to actually do a 2-for-1 special on series. So we talked about Tomino having the unfortunate experience of having one of his shows canceled. However, Tomino also had the opportunity for, in my opinion, to have 2 back-to-back incredible Gundam series. And while there's so much love, I don't love it as much as others, for the original Gundam series with Char, Amuro, Lala, Sayla, all of them. It was a great show. It was very innovative. It created hentai. It really pushed the mech thing. And if you ever want to know what I mean by creating hentai, different episode, I will talk about it. Nevertheless, the sequel series, which takes place 7 years later, I still don't know why I do quotations when nobody can flip and see me. 7 years later is Zeta Gundam, where you take on a brand new Amuro. His name is Camille. And he is a new type, and you'll have to understand Gundam to understand new type. They're almost like psychic abilities that meld very well with machines. So you have almost like a beautiful space opera, starting from taking elements of Star Wars, going into Star Trek, but creating their own dynamics so it does not feel like they're stealing from other space operas.
And then you have Camille's main rival in Jared, which is probably the most shat-on character in the entire franchise.
But he deserves it!
He deserves it, but...
He is a dick to the nth degree.
Yeah, Jared does deserve everything that happens to him, but at the same time, he gets shit on more than I think
But
anybody.
Camille, with his ego, and that's the one thing that's so beautiful about it, because he's such an egotistical boy, he, unlike Amuro, who gets thrown into a very terrible situation and has to grow up very quickly, Camille, even though he's also in a terrible situation and has to grow up quickly, he doesn't. He still acts like an egotistical smartass. And as sad as it is, and I know it's well over 20 years old, so hopefully you get to check it out at some point, because it still holds up to this day and age, he gets his just desserts. And he gets it in the most heart-wrenching manner ever. And then you have Zeta Gundam, which takes place almost less than a year.
It's about a 9-month gap between the two timeline-wise.
And then you have Judao, who is the next main Gundam pilot. And this kid who acts like a kid still, but acts so authentic, not overly egotistical, but just acts like a 14-year-old.
And a junker 14-year-old at that, because he's pretty much working in a junkyard when it's
starts. And these stories, I know when you think, oh god, another teen anime, another mech anime, these are the animes that set the standard for Evangelion, for Escaflowne, for
Gurren Lagann,
for Tekken, for all of the space operas, for all of the mech animes. They would have not gotten to where they were if not for Gundam. And truthfully, if not for Zeta and Double Zeta. Those two shows created a whole new dynamic that everyone, even if it's not space related, cheats off of.
Yeah. Not long after Zeta had ended, the Legend of the Galactic Heroes novels, which is the longest running original video animation show in Japan at 114 episodes. You can see the Gundam stuff with the politics are in those shows, because those shows aren't so much the wars that go on, but the politics, and Gundam nails politics.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't have so many other shows like that. I would go so far as to say you wouldn't have something like Attack on Titan if not for the fact that you had something like Gundam come first, because it created that, like you said, politics. It created that desolate environment. It created that situation where, yes, it's a completely different genre, but if not for having a horrific experience that you get in like Double Zeta, you would have never feel open enough to see a series like Attack on Titan.
Yeah. Now, to close out for series that ended perfectly, we're going to go back to Warner Brothers and the DC properties with Justice League and their final season of Justice League Unlimited, which just, that for a season that got added on for a final 13 episodes, it just felt like a natural end for where it was going.
Well, exactly. And the reason it got added on, and this is the one thing that can hurt a show just as much as it could help a show like it did here. And so Justice League and Justice League Unlimited were so well encapsulated, and they did something that none of the live action shows have done, none of the movies have done, not even the Marvel movies have really done what Justice League did for a story about so many characters, and they all got their own shining moments.
It just goes to show just how wonderful of a writer Bruce Timm is.
Oh yeah, Bruce Timm and anybody who worked on comics, because you had so many other comic writers come in on this. But it also helped that you had incredible voice acting. You had people, both actors, creators, writers, everyone who seemed to understand comics. And that, ultimately, you have to have that core, because you have obscure characters like Hawkgirl.
Question is probably one of the most unknown characters for people that weren't.
I never knew who the Question was, and now I question everything because of his videos. Then you had an episode, and I have never been a huge fan of Wonder Woman, but you had the episodes with Wonder Woman. You had the episodes like the Girls' Night Out, where you had all the female characters. You had
Huntress, Black Canary, and them out there. And then this was a show that introduced me to Green Arrow.
Oh, yes. It introduced me to Green Arrow. It introduced me to more about Wally West, because it had the funniest line in animated history when Wally West is, I can't remember how he said it, but the comeback, or like, I'm always going so fast, and then Hawkgirl is like, so that's why you can't get a girlfriend.
Yeah, that was just priceless. Or one of my best lines, like, have you been going through my trash? And the Question responds, oh, how silly, I go through everybody's trash.
And it's just, there's so many standout characters that I don't think we would have ever gotten. And we actually got a toe-to-toe match between Batman and Apocalypse. And he wasn't, as Kaiji Okami calls him, Bat God, where he was overpowered. Yeah. He was basically Kevin Conroy's Batman from the 90s, having to try to distract
Darkseid however he could.
Darkseid, not Apocalypse.
And then Flash taking on Lex Luthor with Brainiac inside of him.
Exactly. There were so many creative things that it was it was like a nice revival of the Batman the animated series, the Superman animated series from the 90s. It was like, yes, we finally have this back. And then and it was perfect at the episode count it was. And then almost as like a love letter to the fans, they added on 13 episode series that helped close out not just the Justice League show, not just Batman the animated series or Superman. It also closed out Batman Beyond.
Yeah, the Justice League Unlimited Season 2 ended with Endgame, which was originally planned to be the final episode before they added the 13 additional episodes, where it's a conclusion of Terry's story in Batman Beyond. And then they decided, okay, no, we want 13 more episodes ordered. And then with them having that last arc just flesh out everything with the Lex Luthor and Gorilla Grodd and then Darkseid, it's just like you knew where you were going this 13 episodes.
You did, and it was such a nice and welcome experience, especially for DC, because while this was pre the DC cinematic universe
and the TV universe as well,
and a lot of the TV universes, it was still one of those things that kind of reminded us that there is good quality in not just being a singularly focused character. That it didn't just have to be Batman or Superman, that it could be practically everyone. And it really paved the way. While nobody will probably admit this, I think it really did pave the way for doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for trying new things for the WB television shows. If not for this, I don't think anybody would have taken that risk and tried something new.
Yeah, and it really goes to show that the writing Bruce Timm did had an effect on who became the writers that we have now.
Oh, yes. Oh, most certainly. And while we do have a lot of disappointments, like we have with the series that have run too long, or ran too long, I think knowing that there's gems out there in so much of the shit really helps you feel like, okay, television is not a waste. Television is not a dead art. It's just...
You gotta pick and choose. You really gotta pick and choose and know where you're going with something.
Well, exactly.
You know you're gonna get disappointed at some point with these shows. It's just going to happen. But we always gotta remember, Happy Days gave us that true point with jumping the shark.
I know! Ah! When the Fonz jumps a shark, you know you've gone too far. And if you don't know what Happy Days is, don't blame you because it's an older show, but look it up because it's actually cool. But other than that, I think it's time to get off our soapbox.
Exactly.
And yes, we probably missed, because we actually have an extremely long list for all three categories, but we'd be here for hours upon hours upon hours talking about all three categories.
Yeah, and if you want to hear us go on another rant of this another time down the road, we'd be happy to, because we have some others here that we would really like to talk about, and I'm sure we'll probably think of others later on.
Oh, yeah. I can probably look at my anime collection and be like, yeah, that should go there. So let us know what you think. Let us know the shows that you feel ran too long, or that were so perfect in how it was encapsulated in however many seasons or episodes it was. Because we all have loves out there, and it's just a matter of what pop culture works for you.
Yeah. And also, let us know, what show do you think got canceled way too early for you that just let you into a disappointed spiral?
And I would recommend not mentioning shows that got canceled and renewed, because most of them turned out to be failures.
Yeah, Family Guy.
That might be another episode.
Yeah, I think we have our episode for coming up in a few weeks now.
Yeah, shows that got canceled and revived, showing that fan love does not necessarily mean a positive experience.
And on that note, I think we got a good idea for next week. Let's dive into some of the toxicity and some fandoms.
Oh, God. Yeah, actually, pop culture and fandoms. We'll probably be opening a hornet's nest, but hey,
this is going to open up a hornet's nest, so
why not?
Yeah, let's keep the hornet nest open for a little bit.
All right, well, see you next week, everyone.
Good night.
Bye.